Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to the debut episode of the Innerverse Investigations. Now, what is this that you're asking? Well, with the Crisis Corner, we look at various topics and things that are considered fringe, and we try to break them down. And with the Occult World series, we actually look at some of the things that are happening in the paranormal world, in the Satanist world, in the Luciferians world, in the Illuminati's world, and all kinds of other strange things. But in the Innerverse Investigations, we're going to be looking at some of these spiritual truths, some of these spiritual practices, and spiritualism as a whole, and see what that means for us as the individual. We commonly look at all of these things that take place around us 24/7, but I don't think we truly understand how these types of things affect us and what they mean for us. And that's exactly what we're going to do with this particular segment. So, with that being said, let's check out this clip real quick.
It sounds like something out of a science fiction story, a crystal that exists in both space and time. Well, get ready to wrap your head around this. Researchers from the University of Maryland say they've created the first so-called time crystals that represent a new form of matter. A study recently published in the journal Physical Review Letters says time crystals have atomic and molecular patterns that repeat through time. They're unlike anything we've seen before because they can never reach equilibrium. Think of it like a plate of jiggling jello that never stops moving even if it lacks energy. And here's why time crystals are important. While there's still a lot scientists don't know about them, they may help advance quantum computers. Sadly, they probably won't help us develop any time-traveling DeLoreans. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Cambrick Caldwell.
Sorry, Cambrick, I have to disagree. I believe that they will be used for time travel simply because of all the other things that we have in development right now. I talked about the paradoxical statement of the three stages that it would take to create time travel. The thought, and then the construction, and then also basically having the materials to do so. Without going into so much, look at it this way. How far has the USB been created? If you could take your phone, your iPhone, your smartphone, or whatever, you could plug your phone into that charging port for quite some time and actually charge and be able to use your phone in that time period wherever you were. However, would your services still be there? Would your phone act the same? There's so many different questions that come with that. However, we're not here to talk about time travel. In this actual edition, what we are here to talk about is a holographic universe, and things like crystals definitely play a huge part. Let me put it to you this way. What is Pink Floyd's most iconic album? You know, the triangle where they have the light coming through and then they see all kinds of other colors shining through the triangle. What is that? That is what you are. You are the prism in which light shines through. Strange. Well, I'll try to illustrate that throughout the entire episode. A new study has confirmed what some people have been saying for years, that humans really are made of stardust. A new survey of 150 stars shows just how true the old cliche is. Humans and their galaxy are made up of about 97% of the same kind of atoms, and researchers found that the elements of life appear to be more prevalent toward the center of the galaxy. Jennifer Johnson, the science team chair of the SDSSI, Apogee survey, and a professor at the Ohio State University, said in a statement, quote, "It's a great human interest story that we are now able to map the abundance of all the major elements found in the human body across hundreds of thousands of stars in our Milky Way." RT reports a team of astronomers from the Sloan Digital Sky Survey in New Mexico enlisted the Apache Point Observatory Galactic Evolution Experiment, Apogee, which uses infrared wavelengths to see through the galaxy's dust and analyze the composition of 150 stars, or 150,000 stars, across the Milky Way. With that data, the group then cataloged the abundance of schnapps, which is called what? Carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur, elements in each of these stars, which they say represent the building blocks of all of the world around us, and found that humans in their galaxy have about 97% of the same kind of atoms. Strange, right? This instrument collects light in the near-infrared part of the electromagnetic spectrum and disperses it, like a prism, like you do, to reveal signatures of different elements in the atmosphere of stars. End quote. A Sloan spokesperson said in a statement. So remember that. Schnapps, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur. That's you. You're made from stardust. You're made from different elements that all took the time to coalesce and to create what you consider your body. Or did you create a soul contract? We're not entirely sure. but let's keep tumbling down this little rabbit hole that we've already created. And trust me, things are definitely going to start getting a little bit more crazy from here on out. But check this out. With all that's going on in the news and the toxicity we find on social media these days, it's hard to pull back and think about life in the context of the great cosmic magic show unfolding around and within us. At first blush, one might hear the phrase holographic universe and dismiss it as sensationalism or fake news. But incredibly, a new study released on Monday concludes that the holographic universe theory is just as likely to be true as our traditional models of space and time. I think it's good, before I continue on with this article, I think it's good for us to illustrate and highlight the fact that we are still understanding our universe. There is no traditional model of our universe. We are still trying to figure out if we are a heliocentric, a globe-oriented planet, or if we are still living on a flat plane. There is no traditional model of our universe. There is a modern understanding of our universe and how we perceive it. However, now we are beginning to understand new types of physics, new types of spirituality, new sciences, and even new technologies to modify as well as monitor all these types of things going on. I just wanted to put that in there real quick to say that we're still trying to figure out what exactly our universe is. The holographic universe theory, which originated in the 1990s, suggests that all the information in our universe, including space and time itself, is encoded on a 2D surface. Quote, imagine everything that you see, feel, hear in the 3D, in the 3 dimensions, and your perception of time, in fact, emanates from a flat 2-dimensional field, said Professor Kostas Skindris of Mathematical Sciences at the University of Southampton in an interview with Phys.org. He goes on to say that, quote, the idea is similar to that of an ordinary hologram, where a 3-dimensional image is encoded in a 2-dimensional surface, such as in the hologram on a credit card. However, this time, the entire universe is encoded. Quote, the new study conducted by British, Canadian, and Italian researchers used theoretical physics and astrophysics to analyze irregularities in the cosmic microwave background, commonly thought of as the residual glow of the Big Bang. What their analysis suggests is that 1. There are irregularities in current cosmic inflation models, and 2. The holographic universe theory checks out mathematically when applied to the evolution of the universe. In conclusion, the researchers say that there is presently as much evidence to support a holographic universe as there is for the standing cosmological model of the universe. And if you ask me, I think what we need to understand when we're looking at the holographic universe theory, this matrix reality that we are living in, you know, this thought projection reality that we're existing in, the 3 dimension, however you would like to look at it, we have to ask ourselves, who created this? Who created all of these things that we see around us? Who created the code? Who created the way that the wind breezes? The times that the tide comes up, when the moon comes in? Who created that? Who took the time to encode life into plants? You see, who there's so many different beautiful questions that come with that we really have to understand. And if you ask me, this model makes that much more sense than just saying that everything happened because of an explosion, and there, boom, that's how you became who you are. With this particular model, the idea of looking at life as a holographic universe, as an illusion, that's why I wanted to lead in before, explaining the fact that we are created by stardust, that we are the prisms through which light shines through. If this is indeed true, that life is one big hologram and that we are living inside of a projection of a larger thing, wouldn't that make that much more sense? To say that wherever you come from is the same place that I come from. Wherever our grandparents came from is the same place that their great-grandparents came from. True, we do live in these mortal coils and we have to shake off the flesh. But who took the time, as I said before, to create the flesh, to design this perfectly orchestrated human computer, this biocomputer that we are in? Who was able to pull us from some other world, from some other realm of existence, merely to inhabit this meat shell for more than 24 hours? Who did that? There's so many different questions that I myself have whenever I look at this type of thing, but it makes sense because I can see the truth in this. For me, it makes sense. As I said before, the thought projection, the idea that we're creating this, and I've talked about this before, the different planes, the etheric plane, the emotional plane, the astral plane, the light plane, basically multidimensional realities. And this is what we've got to understand. And I try to talk about this throughout the show and throughout other videos. The idea that indeed we are vessels. We have things come through us. We have energies working through us. If it's not the Earth's energy, then it is the cosmic energy all above us. You see, so there's so many different things that we have to look at, because a holographic universe is a very simple term. But what does that mean? You see, that's what we need to look at. How does that affect us? At what point did this become important? Because we need to understand how we react in this holographic reality, you see. And I'll try to get into this, the idea of what it takes to operate in this reality, hopefully with this article. Do you want to be right before anyone else, or do you want everyone to be on the same page? You see, this is the main issue with the current urgent situation. Everyone has their moment of ego. I know I'm totally guilty of it as well. The first one to give their pride away to the service the truth wins, and there is limitless reward and benefit from the truth in this life, because this life is the life of all lives. Everyone that is alive right now existed in the beginning of civilization through an unbroken string of lineage, and this is what I was talking about before, with us being made from stardust. And I'll put it to you this way. Okay, we all come from the same source, as I said before. We're all just broken down into individual different segments, different fractions of the same source, of the same whole. Different spectrums of the same light. You see, and that's what a lot of people need to understand. The operations taking place as part of the crimes against humanity are to swap those lines back and forth and essentially trade the souls of humans like chattel for profit and as a bounty of war. Those who think, feel, research, and keep their hearts pure and their minds clean will resist the defilement that can destroy a human spiritual tie to the soul and thus the spiritual realms and their original identity here. What does this mean? What am I trying to say by breaking this down to you? You've got to understand the diversity of what these people are up to, how they're trying to corrupt you. And a perfect example of this is look at what Lady Gaga did during the Super Bowl. All of the things she does is to try to perverse you, to make you think wicked things, to make you abolish your spirituality, to leave yourself, really. In short, there are genetic harvesting programs taking place which utilize the DNA of humans to generate created life forms, which are the false light or fallen beings described in ancient text. These beings are always present here without their corresponding higher dimensional counterpart to exist in the non-holographic realms outside of this fallen universe and these fallen timelines. What does that mean? What are we always talking about when we say that there are non-local consciousnesses, interdimensional beings, demons, spirits, this consciousness, whatever this is, these spirits, these demons that don't have a body, that don't have something to interact here in the holographic realm with, they will find a way. If we are vessels indeed, then they will find a way to interact with us. They may not have, as they said before, higher dimensional counterparts to exist in the non-holographic realms, but they do exist in our realm. If all of these things are taking place simultaneously, the past, the future, and the present, these very same non-local consciousnesses, these corresponding higher dimensional counterparts, these fallen beings, you see, they may have seen your grandfather grow up. They may have seen your great-grandfather grow up, because time, as we said before at the start of the episode, does not exist. And these entities that have been here, that have been present, and are part of this program, are trying to create bodies. It sounds strange, but they're trying to interact with us here in this plane, in this holographic realm. You see, this all has to do with the spiritual hierarchy and the ancient practice of fleecing the lamb for their spiritual energy, which is then used for secondary purposes outside of the original blueprint for human spiritual development. That is, to have to take life in such a manner only reflects the potential uses of such energy later. Ego, pleasure, pain, Everything to do with this illusory world of polarity, consciousness, and perception, which can be skewered. What does this mean? What we're trying to say is that when we look at things like pornography, whenever we look at things like Lady Gaga, whenever we look at things like Beyonce, whenever we look at all of these things that appeal to our baser emotions, our baser instincts, we're giving them our energy and time. We're giving them all the, as they said before, spiritual energy, which is then used for secondary purposes outside of the original blueprint for human spiritual development. You see, at different stages of our development, because we are in a different phase now. 2012 was, if anything, to signify that, and we've talked about that a number of times as well. The age of Aquarius, the age of Pisces, the transitional time period, the time frame that we are in, guys. We are in a different spiritual development time frame, and these people are trying to hijack it. They are trying to absorb your spiritual strength, absorb all that you have to offer into this world, and tell you that you'll only be as important as the latest iPhone. You'll only know love whenever you look a certain way. This is faux compassion. This is fake compassion as provided by these Luciferians and these Satanists, these people who are trying to hijack our natural spiritual development. As I continue to say on the show, they are trying to redirect our renaissance. They're trying to digitize destiny. They're trying to hijack our evolution, our spiritual evolution. As we talk about a number of times before on the show and all kinds of other videos and whatnot, we can see the evidence of the awakening taking place. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to have all these different articles and videos and everything else to present to you guys in a legible format to show you that indeed an awakening is taking place and that we are the agents of change and we are causing change. But this isn't merely physical. This is a multidimensional thing that is taking place. Yes, it was foretold for us to be in this certain time frame to where we are having this spiritual development, but there are also people who are working to circumvent that, who are trying to, as I said before, use our spiritual energy for secondary purposes outside of the natural spiritual development. You see, we're capable of so much more. This is why we talk about things like neuroscientists finding telepathic abilities in multiple autistic children. How that there is the next healing discovery, that we're looking into things like scalar waves. That with our new magnetic field, and I'm not going to go into detail about how the Air Force and the Navy are shooting plasma bombs into our ionosphere or into our magnetosphere to change the orientation. I'm not talking about that. But how indeed we are seeing the beginning of a new consciousness, how the planetary awakening is happening, and how you are part of the solution. As I said before, at the start of the show, you are the universe experiencing itself as a human for a little while. Niels Bohr has even talked about things. He's even come out as saying everything that we think of as real is made up of things that cannot be regarded as real. Guys, the world that we are living in is that much more mysterious, and you're a byproduct of that world, of this holographic universe. You're the thought projection of a higher reality. That's the only thing that I can say. You are amazing, and they want to systematically tell you that you're not. Broadly speaking, although there are some differences, I think Buddhist philosophy and quantum mechanics can shake their hand on the view of the world. We can see these in the great examples of the fruits of human thinking. Regardless of the admiration we feel for these great thinkers, we should not lose sight of the fact that they were human beings just as we are. And this was said by the Dalai Lama. Scientists and Buddhists from all over the world are starting to see the similarities between their discipline. And the research, which is emerging as a result, is truly exciting. I agree. A classic example of a scientist diving into ancient wisdom is Nikola Tesla, whose work was heavily influenced by Vedic philosophy. Vedic, I'm not sure if I pronounced that wrong, but you know another person who also practiced traditions of the Hindu belief was Steve Jobs. Yes, he too practiced tantric sex magic. He also did a lot of DMT. He also told that his kids would not be playing around with any of the technology that he made, so that should kind of tell you kind of the mindset that Steve Jobs had. But continuing, findings within neuroscience dealing with things like past life and reincarnation also correlate with Buddhist philosophy. Perhaps this is why Carl Sagan said that reincarnation deserves some serious study, and since his passing, it has received some. In 2008, the University of Virginia psychiatrist D.M. Tucker, for example, published a review of cases suggestive of reincarnation in the journal Explore. Without a doubt, various ancient Eastern traditions are closely tied with certain aspects of modern-day science. Though it may seem counterintuitive to some, it seems as though science is actually catching up to the teachings of ancient philosophy and mysticism rather than the other way around. Quote, I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as a derivative from consciousness. We cannot get behind consciousness. Everything that we talk about, everything that we regard as existing, postulates consciousness. And this was said by Max Planck, a theoretical physicist who originated the quantum theory, which won him the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1918. Why are we still dealing with philosophies from, I don't know, my great-great-grandmother? It's probably not that far. But why are we still dealing with philosophies like this? Why have we not advanced these types of things? In the article, it actually mentioned Nikola Tesla, and a lot of what Nikola Tesla has, oh my gosh, we actually see it being basically recreated this day and age with Tesla. You know, it's crazy the amount of work that has been put into discrediting Nikola Tesla, covering up his work, and then basically, you know, giving it to Elon Musk only to reproduce later. It's wild. I could talk all day about how, you know, J.P. Morgan, the Rockefellers, the Rothschild, how they basically systematically destroyed any kind of technology and development into electricity, into the holographic universe, into all kinds of other spiritual natures like this, spiritual technology. And I talk about this as well with Billy Carson of Forbidden Knowledge, where we look at things, you know, like the what did he call it? The physiostatic conductivity that the pyramids create. But the point I'm trying to make is looking at all of this, guys, there is stuff in our history that talks about the spiritual, multidimensional fashion of some of the technology that we create here. Like I said before, whenever I was talking to Billy Carson of Forbidden Knowledge, I had mentioned how whenever Graham Hancock talks about some of his encounters in ayahuasca, how the clockwork elves, which are apparently this race in between types of things, how they regarded his potion, the ayahuasca brew, how they regarded it as technology. And to this day, that blows my mind. You know, this is a brew, this is a potion, this is something that we make, and they consider this a technology. So whenever you look at things like the pyramids, they have a physiostatic component to them. Not only did they add light to the surrounding area, but they also added electricity, what we would consider Wi-Fi, how it would charge people, how it would, you know, build people. There's all kinds of different things that we have to look at. So what I'm trying to get at by looking at these types of things is if Nikola Tesla can study things like Vedic philosophy, and Steve Jobs can look into things like tantric sex and doing DMT and LSD and these types of mind-altering drugs, what does that tell you? Are we doing things differently? I'm constantly talking about how, you know, this phone that you have in your pocket, how that's a ability dampener. You know, it suppresses the things that you're capable of doing. It suppresses you being able to send out natural signals. I've talked about this 1,000 times before. All the technology that we have around us, I believe that we've had these powers for quite some times, but because we've spent all of our time trying to develop technology, develop machines, and develop all robots and all these other things, we have absolved ourselves of the source. We have separated ourselves away from the source. We are trying to find enlightenment through tools that we created to make our life easier. And this is crazy. It's wild, the levels of this. But the point I'm trying to make, guys, is that not only does technology have a spiritual component to it, you yourself have a very spiritual component as well. You see, so quantum mechanics and Buddhist philosophy, Vedic philosophy, spiritualism, mysticism, all these things are trying to basically, if anything, conceptualize the world, the very mysterious world that we're living in. As the article said, it seems like now they're finally starting to catch up to what some of the ancient texts have been saying. And a lot of it's wild. People truly do misinterpret a lot of the spiritual practices that are simple. And long story short, there is no way for me to tell you what works for you. All we can really say is that you have got to be aware of the things that are taking place around you. You are more powerful than you give yourself credit for. If we're swimming in consciousness, if consciousness is everywhere, and indeed humans can absorb the energy of others, think of your aura. Think about what you're speaking into reality. Think about how you interact in this realm, in this holographic universe. If you indeed are just a thought projection, well, what are you projecting into the world? What are you projecting out to other individuals? Do you care? What are scalar waves? What is karma? You see, what is the natural balance of things? And people don't take the time to actually look into these types of things and understand themselves and the orientation within it or through it. So check this out. 2 days after my birthday, on January 31st, 2017, for the first time in recorded history, the Schumann resonance has reached frequencies of 36 plus. This is a big deal. This is a very big deal. In 2014, it was considered anomalous for the frequency to have risen from its usual 7.83 frequency to somewhere in the 15 to 25 levels. Now it is spiking well over 30 for the past few days. That's crazy. And it goes on to say that the Schumann resonances, quote, are a set of spectrum peaks in the extremely low frequency portion of Earth's electromagnetic field spectrum. Schumann resonances are global electromagnetic resonances generated and excited by a lightning discharge in the cavity formed by the Earth's surface and the ionosphere, end quote. It has long been suspected that human consciousness can impact the magnetic field and create disturbances in it, particularly during moments of high anxiety, tension, and passion. Strange, right? Strange how even in this article it tells you that you can affect the world around you. People need to understand that your thoughts and words really do affect reality. According to the above article, quote, as human beings, we have extraordinary potentials we have hardly begun to study, much less understand. Creative gifts, intuitions, and talents that are unpredictable or emergent may become stabilized in generations to come. Hopefully, we can learn to understand both our emergence from an essentially magnetic environment and facilitate our potential for healing, growth, and non-local communication. I think what he's trying to allude there is telepathy. Many have been reporting the feeling that time has been speeding up. Could the increased frequencies have something to do with this? Quote, for many years, this resonance frequency has hovered at a steady 7.83 hertz with only slight variations. And in June 2014, that apparently changed. Monitors at the Russian Space Observing System showed a sudden spike in activity to around 8.5 hertz. Since then, they have recorded days where the Schumann resonance, or where the Schumann accelerated as fast as 16.5 hertz. At first, they thought their equipment was malfunctioning, but later they learned the data was accurate. Everyone was asking, what causes this intermittent spiking activity? I'll tell you this, as we've all been able to notice, we have been charged, polarized, whatever you want to call it. We are starting to see the birth of this entire generation coming up, waking up, however you want to see it. People are fed up with it, with how things are. We are trying to be changed. There is so many different factors that I can equate to this type of change that it literally becomes awe-inspiring. What caused this intermittent spiking activity? What was all of 2016? People literally woke up from their slumbers and were upset with everything that they were seeing, and whether or not they were properly informed, that's up for a debate. That's up for discussion. But regardless, people were upset, engaged, and talking about the things that mattered. And now, because we're seeing this, because we're getting all the information, all the data that took place last year, people are able to say, wow, what really did happen? What's up with this Schumann resonance? Why do we have a new consciousness? What is this scalar wave stuff? Why are neuroscientists finding telepathic abilities in multiple autistic children? while we also have the CIA over here disclosing thousands, if not millions, of CIA UFO documents, as well as them talking about things like Project Stargate, Project Pegasus, their training of psychic soldiers. We're developing things such as time crystals. So what caused this intermittent spiking activity? It's the fact that people are literally starting to understand themselves in this reality. How does this tie into the holographic reality? Because everything that we see is a thought projection. We created this reality. We created all the things that we see here. Though there were some people, the Illuminati, the Satanists, the Luciferians, that had a hand in this, trying to guide our evolution, as I've said before. But this is the world that we've created. This is why we have to be the change that we want to see in the world. This is why we have to start creating things. We have to speak things into existence. And if we let these guys, these Luciferians, these Illuminati, Satanists, if we let them have the conversation, this one-sided deal, then they will create an entirely totalitarian reality that we have to abide by. As I've said before, trying to force us into their 160 characters approved reality. I don't want that. What I do want is more of this. I want people waking up. I want their instruments to be going off of the charts. I want us to see the potential that we truly do have, what we're able to create when we do decide to come together. And although there are some people that will destroy things, that's to be given, some things have to be destroyed in order for other things to grow. This is the nature of the universe. Everything is temporary. So whether or not this is tied into the holographic universe, and if we are putting forth our energy from some other realm and trying to make change, that's all up for debate. But what we've got to realize ourselves is that all of these things are taking place, guys. Humans are waking up. The Schumann resonance is changing. Quantum mechanics and Buddhist philosophy are becoming that much more of a reality. You are made of the schnapps. You are made of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur. These are all elements found within the universe. You are the universe experiencing itself. That's as simple as I can say it, guys. The New World Order is trying to control you. While we are supposed to awaken, what will you let happen? Your brain is a computer. You have got to make sure that you are the one trying to program it. You see. But that's all I really got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed this very first episode of Innerverse Investigations. If you guys have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll have it in the description bar below. And as always, guys, stay vigilant, expose lies, and share truth. This is Noise Era, Freedom Faction, out.